That
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a treat here on Sportswire Radio, and it's not too often that you get a chance to speak with a Hall of Famer, but we've got that here on a Sunday afternoon, and this man needs no further introduction, but he's going to get it because he is a Hall of Famer. He was recently inducted into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame. He had a decorated career for legendary backyard wrestling where he was labeled the unpredictable one. He was the hardcore icon for a reason because he was 16 times the 24/7 champion. He was the first ever U.S. champion, and he had some dominant wars with the likes of CJ the Alpha Junt, a recent Sportswire Radio guest. He had some promo battles with an upcoming Sportswire Radio guest, which we'll announce also later today. He has also been with the likes of Nate Dogg, the Welster, plus a heck of a lot more we're going to discuss. As I alluded to, he needs no further introduction, but because he is a Hall of Famer, he is going to get that introduction that we all give on Sportswire Radio, because I know in legendary backyard wrestling, they don't have the pipes to give it to him. So, right there! Wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one level sports show, the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Famer. They call him the Hardcore Icon, Chris Arruda. My friend, how are you?
good. Doing pretty good. Enjoying retirement.
Well, let's see about that. I'm sure a number of wrestlers could certainly compare and contrast. We'll definitely, I am sure, get into that. But Chris, obviously, you've got a decorated career. We're going to get into all of that shortly. But I was always curious because for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, especially somebody like yourself for the first time that's here as a Hall of Famer, how did you get into this, and how did you kind of start your backyard wrestling career?
Well, first I got to give it to CJ the Alpha Junt. He wanted. He always wanted to do it, and we're all family, you know. So I was like, it sounds fun. I love wrestling, so let's do it. Let's have some fun, and that's what got us started.
So this was something that you didn't think about years ago and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to go do this. I'm going to have a backyard career." I mean, because you actually have a little bit of a interesting journey than, let's say, somebody else that might have got inducted, or just anybody else, even on the legendary backyard wrestling roster. So, I mean, was this something that you had long wanted to do, or just talk about that?
No, it really wasn't nothing long I wanted to do. It was just kind of like, we all talked about it. We wanted to get it going, and we just started, a few years ago. So I was like, you know what, might as well. Let's have some fun. We all love wrestling, so I just started when CJ and all them started. So
Okay.
just kind of like,
I could certainly see
yeah.
that, and I was curious, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, what made you such a, let's say, hardcore wrestler? I mean, they called you the hardcore icon, and I mean, I got to watch a number of your matches now, in alluding to the interview here, and I mean, what made you just kind of a guy that would just want to do all these crazy stuff? Throwing your opponents into trees, and getting hit with chairs, getting hit with garbage cans. I mean, going off on ladders and all these different things that you did throughout your career in legendary backyard wrestling. What made you attracted to that?
Oh, has to be back in the Attitude Era when they had the hardcore title.
Yep.
You know, I love those matches. Mick Foley, Bob Harley, all those matches.
Yep.
They had,
Also, sure. Steve
yeah,
Blackman. Yep.
all of them. Yep. And I just love that type of wrestling. It's fun. It gives a edge to it, and it brings the fans and stuff. Like get them riled up and enjoy the matches. And who doesn't like hitting somebody with a trash can? You know.
I'm sure you like hitting somebody with a trash can, but I'm sure on the other side of it, it's tough taking it because I mean, some of that stuff, I mean, I've seen you be involved in and what you've done. I mean, you've been certainly somebody that's been on the other side of it. So it's
Oh
great
yeah,
to
oh
do
yeah.
it, but go ahead.
It's it's fun. You take it, you give it. It's all fun. If you get a little beat up, hey, that's just war wounds from backyard wrestling.
Oh, listen, I mean, certainly Mick Foley is kind of the walking example of that. Speaking of hardcore legends and even guys that started, I was
Or
doing, yep.
like Terry Funk and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Terry Funk just celebrated a birthday. Tommy Dreamer, who just won another championship in a small independent wrestling promotion that's actually had a match or a show not too far from where I live here in New York. And you think about Mick Foley again, as I was going to say. Here's a guy that really started out basically in backyard wrestling. He was a guy jumping off roofs. He was a guy basically putting himself
Yep.
through tables back 40 years ago on Long Island. Again, not too far from me. And you've certainly done some of those things here in legendary backyard wrestling. And I was curious because you're from Las Vegas, and legendary backyard wrestling, as we know, is in North Dakota. So I was kind of curious for
Yep.
those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio. Talk about kind of what led you from Las Vegas to the home of legendary backyard wrestling.
Um. Well, with the personal part aspect of it, my kids always grew up with Just Ice from LBYW,
Mhm.
and they're all cousins. So we all kind of let our kids grow up with their cousins. And when they moved out here, Las Vegas started going downhill with crime and everything else. So we decided, you know what, it's time for a change, and we moved to North Dakota a couple of years after they did.
It's interesting you said that because everybody now you think about in sports, and for those who are sports fans out there, Las Vegas has become almost like the capital of sports. I mean, I just heard yesterday Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, they're doing like a commissioner's cup, and they're actually going to host the championship in Las Vegas. And yet you gave a different perspective, and I would never have guessed. I've never been to Las Vegas, and I was so curious. And I mean, what's the weather adjustment like then, going from Las Vegas to North Dakota? That I think more fascinated in almost.
Oh, insane. Like when the first year we moved up here, it was a mild winter, and everybody
Okay.
was wearing shorts and stuff like that. And we were bundled up from head to toe because we're used to 110, 111-degree weather. And it was like 40 or 50. And we're like, nah, nope. Way too cold.
I was wondering
But
about that because
it
yeah,
was a big adjustment.
I was wondering because I've seen some of your matches and basically CJ's in shorts and almost like a like fall gear and like winter, and you're all bundled up, and I'm like, wow, I just thought that would be an interesting kind of perspective. Let me get to some comments here because people like to say hello. Obviously, the man behind Legendary Backyard Wrestling, I believe this is CJ the Alpha Junt, says Chris Arruda, gives the strongman icons. My good buddy Anthony Finkel, probably out there working, doing some hardcore work in his own right, says the number one. I appreciate that. Our very good friend who just had his return match in 14 years, his first one in 14 years, Skulls the Soul Hunter from Wrestling Championship Entertainment, went all the way from
How's
California.
it going, Skull?
Yeah, went from all the way from California to Wisconsin. So listen, if Skulls can go out there and wrestle in Wisconsin via California, maybe Legendary Backyard Wrestling is in his plans in the future. Who knows? He says jumping off a roof.
Hey,
Hmm?
if he wants to come on out, we could set something up with CJ the Alpha, and surely invite him out here. We'd love to have him.
Absolutely, no question about that. We love Skulls. I know we'll talk with Skulls when he comes back safely back to California. Tommy Dreamer is going to be at the SWF. I appreciate that. Want to say hello. Speaking to some hardcore icons, our friends over at Dark Cryptic Wrestling just had their Summer Bash show last week. Says hello to everyone. Please follow them. Also, Dark Cryptic Wrestling. They're via Ohio on YouTube. Check them out with their wars with the IMF. So, all right, so I got a little bit of the idea in the fact that you went from Las Vegas to North Dakota, how you got into wrestling, but let's talk about some of your favorite matches. And obviously, some of those matches certainly took place with the one and only CJ the Alpha Junt, the man that came on the show here on
Oh yeah.
Sportswire Radio last month. And I mean, what made him such an opponent for you where you got to kind of show What wound up leading you to your career as a Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Famer?
I think it is because our passion for and our love for the wrestling and wanting to do backyard wrestling, we are able to put more out on the line against each other and show the fans, how hard we could actually go. We both can take a hit and give a hit, and it's fun wrestling with somebody, that has that same passion and drive and stuff that you do because it makes both of you guys better. And then we're not scared to get hurt or hurt each other. So that makes it even better.
Was there a comfort level that you could kind of push boundaries with him versus, let's say, if you would have
Oh
started
yeah,
out with somebody else?
oh yeah. There was definitely when we first started wrestling and stuff, and even practicing, we we noticed right off the bat, we can do more with each other than we could with other wrestlers. We're more comfortable with it. We could be more physical with each other, and we could do like more hardcore stuff. It's just a better comfort level.
No question. I could certainly see that. And you guys had a number of different matches. Obviously, one was specifically over CJ's control of the company at the time, and there was some other matches here. And was there ever a point in some of these matches where you guys did different spots, whether it was off the trampoline and different spots outside? I mean, I think you guys even used the tree branches, as I alluded to. You guys used, let's say, real estate for sale signs. I mean, you guys pretty much, there was nothing you didn't want to do. Was there ever any, in discussing the matches, or even maybe during these matches you guys had, that there was stuff that you didn't want to do, or you felt that maybe you were pushing the boundaries? I was curious about that.
No, not really. We always checked out our surroundings, and we figured out a little bit ahead of time. Okay, we could use this, we could use that. Well, this won't hurt that much, so we can use that. This might hurt a little bit, but we can take it. So one of us will get hit with something like that. Uh, we've done we've done 24/7 championships in alleyways where we've used the big plastic trash cans, parking signs. We've done backyard brawls where we used everything we could find. Um, Even in our very first match, the very first hardcore match of LBYW, he put me through a table from jumping off a ladder. So there really was no limit.
I was curious about that because you guys have done so many different things. And I was wondering, for those that are listening and watching, even we have some different backyard wrestlers that are on here. And I mean, was there ever like a point where you were like, you know what, I can't find anything. I can't, there's nothing I can use, or there's just something I was looking for and I didn't have it. I had to go kind of resort to something else. Was there ever that moment? I mean, I'm just kind of curious and watching some of the stuff that you and him pulled off.
Um, Sometimes there's sometimes things we wanted, like a steel chair or something we couldn't find it, or the one we previously used, so we can't use anymore. So we just have to improvise with like a shovel or you know a basketball in one of our matches. We hit each other with a basketball. You know? So and then a lot of times it was just we just went with whatever's around. That's what we're doing. So we'll just use whatever we can find, get our hands on.
I think that was a first. By the way, I think that was a first using a basketball in a match. By the way,
Yeah, that was a first. The first with the ladder. This is the only time that we've used a ladder was in our hardcore match, but we do want to bring that back.
well, a ladder. I mean, we've seen, and obviously, we're having a hard time. I think with Chris Arruda's connection here. Unfortunately, he's on a phone, and I think where they are in North Dakota, they're having a little bit of technical difficulties. But I kind of think it's fascinating that you use a basketball in a hardcore match. You really haven't had that. So here, but let's get to some comments as we wait for this Mr. Hall of Famer himself, Chris Arruda, to come on here. Just don't pull an attack on Sportswire Radio like Craven Rage did to Skulls. Well, I'm curious, Skulls, about that. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, next week on the show. Craven got a cheap shot. Yeah, he definitely did. By the way, the first ever attack on Sportswire Radio history was Craven Rage on Skulls. You think about it, we've been doing this almost 5 years, and I've never had one wrestler attack another wrestler live on the air. And that's the first time that has ever happened here. Yes, Dark Cryptic Wrestling, he was trying to soften up Skulls. Well, I think the big question here is, did it work, Skulls? That's going to be the $1,000,000 question that a lot of people are going to see here. So glad the backyard scene is making a comeback. Amen to that. I'm so happy as well that the backyard wrestling is making a comeback, and we are huge parts of that here on Sportswire Radio. And I hope everybody follows us here on Sportswire Radio at Sportswire Radio, also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we will also have more backyard wrestling coverage with our friends at Dark Cryptic Wrestling. Yes, sorry, Tom. You can call me Tim, though. If you want to call me Tim, you could certainly call me Tom. But we're hoping here that Chris Arruda will come on here. He's unfortunately having some technical difficulties. Let's see here if we can get him back on. Still not connected here, so he's got to have to figure this out. But we will have more coverage tomorrow night. I'll be on here 11 p.m. Eastern Time, right after WWE Raw, with the Anarchist Gunshot. Another guy that's been a huge part of things in the backyard wrestling scene, also a backyard wrestling Hall of Famer inducted last year. And I'll be on also tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. British Standard Time, with the Big Cheese Logan. The Big Cheese Logan's going to talk about his upcoming matches. He's also the CWE UK champion. He'll have a lot to discuss, as he always does, so you'll want to tune into that one. I'll also be here Tuesday in the same spot, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. British Standard Time, with the juggernaut John Allens, the new British Promotions Wrestling's king of old school champions. So a lot of coverage here on Sportswire Radio. In the meantime, while we're waiting for our friend Chris Arruda, please follow our friends over at Legendary Backyard Wrestling. They are on YouTube at CJ Junt. You can also catch them at ND_backyard_wrestling. Please follow our friends over at Legendary Backyard Wrestling. They just put on a July 4th show. They have a number of other shows here. So we will wait here for Chris Arruda. Hopefully he comes on here, and we look forward to his arrival. But again, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Also, some other shows of note. I'll be back here Friday with Firestar Championship Wrestling's Stu Tunney, and it looks like Chris Arruda is trying to connect back on. Let's see if we can get him on. Tom, I'm going to be the voice of backyard wrestling. I hope so. I mean, certainly, I definitely hope that I've got a voice and people want to hear it. Yeah, we definitely would love to come out, you guys. I think next year's Summer Bash, we're looking at next July, right around the first week. So I am definitely looking forward to that. Also, a number of other shows from our friends from the IMF. Cannot forget about the IMF. Also, WCE, Wrestling Championship Entertainment. Also have Tennessee Backyard Wrestling out there. Have more coverage coming up with them. So a lot of shows ahead, and we're just waiting for this guy, Chris Arruda. Find a laptop or something, man. We're waiting for you. Come on, buddy. Let's get this going. We're all waiting here, and I can only kill so much time here. In fact, we're waiting. CJ Junt, the Alpha CJ Junt. Let's see here. Here we go. Maybe we've got him. Let's see. All right. Am I going to keep you here? Because I know you got some technical
Yes,
difficulties.
you are. Yes, you are. My internet completely crapped out on me.
Okay, so I realize I'm not going to have a lot of time with you, so I'm going to just cut to the meat and potatoes here. What did it mean to you to be inducted into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame?
Oh, that meant everything to me, from the backyard wrestling fans and from the Nexus, accepting me, and for CJ the Alpha Jump for letting me, start my career. So it means everything for it.
Was that something that you knew was going to happen? How did it all lead to where you got the call?
No, CJ informed me that he had put my name in for it, but I wasn't. But neither one of us knew until Backyard Wrestling Nexus put it out that me and Anthony Aries and all of us were getting inducted. So we didn't have no clue.
So this was something that, sometimes people get inducted into the Hall of Fame and they know weeks ahead of time, they know months ahead of time, and they can't say nothing because there's a process. So you basically didn't know that you were going to be inducted.
No, not until close to when they had the Heart of Glory pay-per-view.
And
I
then
want to.
when you're in the class itself, like for example, somebody we've had on here, a Jack Delta. I mean, Jack Delta speaks for itself. I mean, he's basically a backyard wrestling darling right now. I mean, he's pretty much wrestling everywhere. I mean, he's probably right now wrestling somewhere as we speak in a different state. I mean, what did you think of the class that you were inducted with, especially somebody we've had on here on Sportswire Radio and a Jack Delta?
Oh, that's the class is top notch that we were in. They, all of us have done everything you could think of in backyard wrestling. So it's just a really awesome class that well deserved.
Did that kind of make, I guess, your career with the retirement? We'll talk about the retirement here shortly. And did that kind of make maybe the retirement a little bit easier, knowing that you're going to be a Hall of Famer? And again, how many people can say they're a Hall of Famer? In fact, I was on my regular sports show Friday, which is Friday nights, a little bit after about 10 p.m. Eastern time here, live on Sportswire Radio. And one of my analysts said, "Well, is there really a backyard wrestling Hall of Fame?" And I said, "Yes." And actually, I mentioned you, and we're going to have you on here. But did that make the retirement a little bit easier, knowing that you were actually going to be a Hall of Famer?
A little bit. But don't get me wrong, I it was kind of hard because I love doing backyard wrestling, so it's kind of bittersweet. It made it a little easier, but not much because I'm going to miss the in ring action.
But I mean, it had to still say, I mean, listen, if you would have asked yourself 5 years ago, even, right? 5 years ago, you weren't wrestling, you weren't doing anything. This was even before the whole concept of legendary backyard wrestling, that you were going to be a Hall of Famer, right? How many people in life can say they're a Hall of Famer? I mean, there's people all around the world that are successful, whether it's athletes, whether it's entertainers, wrestlers, musicians, you
Yeah.
name somebody. And there's very few people that can say in any facet that they're a Hall of Famer. I mean, I would probably be in the Hall of Shame if they could have one, but you're a Hall of Famer. I mean, so does that make it like you ever say to yourself 5 years ago, hey, I don't even know if I was going to do this, but do you ever think about that in that sense?
Oh, I do all the time. Actually, we were just talking about, I want to say maybe a couple weeks ago about being like, holy crap, Backyard Wrestling Hall of Fame. I never thought my name would be even remotely mentioned in any type of Hall of Fame, you know? Because I just figure I'm a regular guy, doing what I like, taking care of the family, and here I am. It's pretty exciting.
And how did your family react? And how did your kids? I mean, obviously, I know your family is really involved in this stuff too. They're into it. So, I mean, how did they
Oh, yeah.
kind of react?
Oh, they thought it was really cool. They got tired of me coming back, and because I was battling injuries and I kept trying to come back. They're like, okay, it's time to retire. And then when I told them that the Hall of Fame, they were really excited. First one from LBYW to get in.
Did that make it extra special? Because I asked CJ about this, and obviously, kind of leading to you coming on. And did that make it extra special also that you were the first one from Legendary Backyard Wrestling to be inducted? It could have been anybody else. It could have been CJ, could have been the Wilster, but the fact you were the first one in the company, nobody can take that away. Go ahead.
Yeah, Wilster's not on our level of Hall of Fame yet. He's a rookie. Maybe
Well,
one day he'll get there.
I mean, I'm going to certainly plead the fifth on that. But I mean, again, you're the first one. You're the first
Yeah,
one of the company. So everybody remembers the first. They always say they remember the first and the last. And you were the first, and that was
yep.
basically your last active thing in wrestling was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that's got to be cool.
Yeah, it really is being the first from LBYW because I had a chance to be the first in a lot of things. The inaugural United States champion, the first ever hardcore match, the first ever battle Royal Rumble, and I was able to win all of them and be first in them. So being first in Hall of Fame is just the dice.
And I was wondering, because you were part of so many things in a short amount of time, was there anything that you would have liked to have done that you didn't get a chance?
Oh yeah. My match with Showtime was for the new interstate title, and at the time we didn't have the tag team titles, and that was the only title that I did not get my hands on and win. So that's the only regret I have. I didn't get a chance to win that one.
What did it mean to you to be the first ever U.S. champion in legendary backyard wrestling history?
Oh, it means a lot, 'cause especially if you look back in WWE. with all the United States champions they had, you know, and being the first one, United States champion, just the name of it, it just has such a big meaning to it, and being able the first one to win it, just top of the list.
Yeah, when you
I
think
kind
about
of like,
the
I kind of
lineage, God.
Oh, I was kind of like winning the United States title better than the world heavyweight title,
Well, I was
in my
about to
opinion.
say that the lineage of the United States title going back to the NWA days was Roddy
Yeah,
Piper, Ric Flair. You even think about in WCW, guys like Lex Luger, Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg. Goldberg's first title was the U.S. title. Bret the
yep.
Hitman Hart. I mean, Booker T, Scott Steiner. So the U.S. title, in a lot of ways, was a really important title here. And let me get to some comments here because people would like to talk with you while we have a little bit of time with you. I'm going to be as respectful as I
Yeah,
can
no
because I
problem.
realize we got some internet issues. Skulls will be available after Tuesday for any minute. Yeah, we'll definitely schedule a date here to get you on and talk about the WC experience, but I got to wait until WC releases the show so we can kind of talk about that. So that's going to be up to management. I'm probably assuming next week we'll do a spot. Chris, it took me 14 years to make my in-ring return back to backyard wrestling, which was obviously I just noted. Also, Matthew Forsaken and Darkron took a 12-year break. Now they're back doing more than ever imagined. I was just with a wrestler
Nice,
in New
nice.
York. Yeah, and I was just with a wrestler yesterday from the UK, Sheriff Steele, who started his career at 33 and is 43 now. So I mean, you just never know. It's a different world than it was years ago. People thought automatically, well, I can't do it, and that time has passed. No,
Oh
in
no,
wrestling, it's a different thing. And the backyard scene is
yeah,
back. I mean, how do you feel about the backyard wrestling scene? You know, on Sportswire Radio, as I'm sure you're aware of, we talk with a lot
yeah.
of backyard wrestling companies now, and I really feel like backyard wrestling to me, in some ways, I'm more interested in backyard wrestling right now than I'm into some of the independent scenes because what I see with the creativity, what I see with the talent, what I see with the different things going on. I mean, how do you feel about the backyard scene right now?
Oh, I think it's amazing, and it's just spreading like a wildfire. It's popping up all over the place now, and the creativity. What I like about backyard wrestling is we have control of our own creativity, our characters, and everything. We want. We don't have no corporate people telling us what we need to do and what we can't do. We can do whatever we want to do and bring that to the fans. And I
What I
love how it's
think
popping up.
Yeah, what I think is most important, and I've said this on and off the air to different wrestlers, because obviously I speak with a lot of them, Chris, and tell me your thoughts on this, because obviously you're a Hall of Famer. You're going to know a lot more than I would. But I think the intellectual property of the backyard wrestler, owning that is such an advantage over the independent wrestler because the promoter owns that owns your rights and basically they can do whatever they want with it. Whereas a backyard wrestler, you're really setting yourself up, your intellectual property to kind of
Yep.
expose yourself to a larger audience and reach out to some people. And I think that's the biggest difference. And I think that's the biggest advantage that you guys have. I mean, what do you think on that?
I think it is too because, like I said, we could choose our own gimmicks. We could choose. Okay, we could tell ourselves, okay, this don't work, so we're gonna drop this instead of like a promoter or a big company saying, okay, we're gonna push this gimmick until all fans get annoyed with it or they don't like it and they start booing you and stuff like that. As us independents, if we realize, oh, this don't work, we could switch right away and find something that does work instead of to having the big
Absolutely.
bosses pushing and pushing. And
I
we get
totally
more
agree with that.
creativity.
I definitely agree with that. And I would like people to follow while we're here, Legendary Backyard Wrestling at ND underscore backyard underscore wrestling. If you're on Facebook, send a friend request to Chris Arruda. You can catch him on Instagram at chris.arruda at ARRUDA.98. So make sure you
Yep,
follow him.
yep.
Make sure you follow our friends at Legendary Backyard Wrestling. Also YouTube as well at CJ Junt. So make sure you support Legendary Backyard Wrestling. Over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I'll get to that here in a second. I
That,
do have some comments. I want to get to a most recent guest on Sportswire Radio from a company called ROBW. They have some big matches coming up here. I believe one that's going to be released in a little while or certainly this evening. It's going to be the good guy CJ Black. Don't worry, the man you wanted to comment has finally done so. So CJ Black, the good guy, the other
oh,
CJ, yeah. I don't know if you've been following ROEW and some other companies, but
I
CJ is
have.
become. Oh, you have? And what do you think of some of these other companies? We have a number of them on here:
I,
DKW, IMF,
yeah,
ROEW, TBW. Everybody knows TBW though, but I mean, what do you think of some of these other companies out there?
there's a lot of really good companies, a lot of good characters out there. I love how some of them have wrestling rings and stuff. It makes a big difference. But CJ Black being the good guy and stuff like that, I'm over all that nonsense. He ain't a good guy.
You sure about? You sure? So you don't think he's a good guy? You don't think so?
I don't think he is. I think he's just trying to play as a baby face, but he really a heel.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, certainly you're a Hall of Famer, and I'm not going to argue too much with that. But I was curious because you guys wrestle on the trampoline, and we spoke about this with
Yep.
CJ. Would you have ever wanted to wrestle in a ring?
Oh yeah, definitely. If we actually have a ring, well, we're trying to in the process of figuring all that out. Price wise for everything, and then the location, so we can get a ring set up. But I would probably come out of retirement for one or two matches, inside a ring.
Really? So I was going to ask you about that. You stole my thunder. So obviously, it's well documented about your retirement, and it's very hard in wrestling to stay retired. I mean, look at Mick Foley, right? Look at Ric Flair. I mean, Ric Flair
Yep.
probably right now still would like to wrestle. So, I mean, kind of talk about for those that are listening and watching about the retirement, what led to the retirement, and if you would want to come back.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of it was I was battling some injuries, so it got to a point where I thought I would have to retire, but I worked through it, did the exercise, did everything I was supposed to do, so I was able to come back. But this last one was just a little too much on the body, and I was informed by the doctors and stuff that it just wouldn't be possible. But you never know. Look at Edge; he came back.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
you think about
9 years
Edge. We
later.
just saw him on SmackDown, and here was a guy that was retired for about 9 years, I want to say, before he came
Yep.
back right before COVID, and he's still doing things. I mean, how about Sting, right? Did anybody think Sting would be near 65 and kind of still being a part of things in AEW? I mean, listen, we speak about, listen, Mick
Jumping out.
Foley came back a bunch of times. I mean, so.
Yeah, like yeah, who would thought Sting, 65 years old, he's jumping off freaking ladders and everything else still. I
Yeah,
have to
this
give it. That is my all-time favorite wrestler of all time.
Really? Well, Sting,
Oh yeah,
I always liked Sting a lot in WCW because I really kind of thought he was kind of like the franchise guy, which was what they called him back in the day. He was
yep,
the franchise, and I always thought his versatility and the types of opponents and the types of things that he did, also reinventing his character as many times as he did. That's a great choice. And even I think Sting's work in TNA kind of goes unnoticed because he had some great matches in TNA, and all throughout those years, it had a really long run in TNA. In fact, I think he actually wrestled more in years in TNA than quote unquote technically WCW was alive. But yes, Sting's a great a reference there. And I have some
oh
comments.
yeah.
I want to get to people. Sometimes the
Okay.
most Sometimes the most important secrets are hidden in the most obvious places. Okay, I appreciate the comment. Thoughts on GCW's backyard wrestling escapades? Now, GCW is obviously the standard bearer out there, and if you've caught any of that, you have a thought or
Um,
two on that. If you've caught,
I have I have not been able to catch that. I work overnight, so I sleep quite a bit during the day, so I have to catch up on it.
I
I have to catch up
sympathize
on
with
quite
you.
a little bit.
Well, I actually appreciate that you actually also work overnight because you'll chuckle, but I actually, to do the interview, I was sleeping until about an hour and a half ago. So I could certainly appreciate that. I get a few hours sleep here and there, but the last 2 days I've gotten the most sleep I've gotten in about 2 weeks. So I'm a little excited because it's a lot more quieter where I am right now. So that's why I got some more sleep. CJ Black would like to tell you stick to the trampolines, rings hurt. Maybe rings more.
No,
No?
right? No. I'll take the pain to wrestle in the ring. That's why they call me the hardcore icon.
You are the hardcore icon. You are the unpredictable one, and that's why we're happy to have you. I want to break it here while I have some time with you, and I'm going to have a guest on tomorrow night, right after WWE Raw, that you actually have some history with, you didn't quite have a battle in a trampoline or outside a trampoline with, but it looks like it was going to happen with. It was another Hall of Famer you might have heard of who was inducted last year into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame. That is the Anarchist Gunshot himself. And he is live here on Sportswire Radio. He's going to be here tomorrow night right after WWE Raw. And I was curious your thoughts on this, Mr. Arruda, and the fact that the Anarchist Gunshot's going to be here. He is certainly another accomplished individual. And I mean, why didn't it happen that you and him didn't square off in legendary backyard wrestling? And anything you might want to say, and if there's any unfinished business or unfinished promos out there between you and the Anarchist
Oh
Gunshot.
yeah, oh yeah. So first, I would gladly come out of retirement if he finally makes it up here to North Dakota, and because I did challenge him to a dog collar match,
I remember
North
that. Yes.
LBYW's first ever. But things happened. He couldn't make it up here, and then he kept on with the promos and the promos, and he just got boring to me. I'm an unpredictable one. I move on. I Showtime CJ the Alpha John to face. So he still hung up on it. He's an afterthought to me now. But if he ever did come up here, I am still game to come out of retirement and mop the trampoline with him in the dog collar match. So I'm
So,
not worried about it.
so you would, if he found a way to come up here to North Dakota, you would still want to have that match.
Oh yeah, because with all of the promos and smack talking and everything else, I'm just gonna have to prove to him why I am the Hall of Famer, unpredictable one, and the hardcore icon. And then I would send him back to wherever he's from, you know, with his tail between his legs, with the big old L.
Well, he was alluding to quite a bit the age difference between the two of you, and he was trying to allude into that as almost, say, a slap at you almost. But in a way, maybe your experiences, maybe what you've done out there in a Hall of Famer versus Hall of Famer match, it's almost like Old Yeller still has a trick or two up his sleeve, and
Oh
maybe the
yeah,
Anarchist Gunshot doesn't know what he has coming to him.
oh yeah. As you can see, the old man still got it because I'm the new 24/7 champion in LBYW,
I was
and
gonna say, I was gonna mention that. Go ahead.
and I think he's just using the age as an excuse not to come up here because he doesn't want to get put down by the older, hardcore icon, the older Hall of Famer.
So he's afraid of competition than real competition.
Oh yeah, that's why, he won't come up here because age ain't nothing. I started this a few years ago. I'm almost 40 now, and I'm still out here. I did it. I'm in the Hall of Fame, so I don't see age being a difference.
Okay, well, listen, Aaliyah famously had an album, Age Ain't a Number, so we'll have to see if that is the case. We'll see if the Anarchist Gunshot has a thing or two to say about that. You can follow him on Instagram at _Anarchist_Gunshot. He is also a part of ETW_Backyard_Wrestling, which is the CEO of his company. He's also a part of HFW and a number of different companies we have seen him in. He's going to talk about all those experiences here and more tomorrow night, right after WWE. Well, now you just mentioned something I was about to ask you, Chris. You've done a lot of that here because obviously you're a very good talker. You're one of the best in the business. And I originally introduced you as a 16-time 24/7 champion, but apparently you
Yes.
broke Ric Flair's record. Now you're a 17-time champion. And talk about now being a 17-time champion while in retirement, even, and how this all unfolded, my friend.
Okay, so even you don't have to even retired or famous people could be a 24/7 champion. We've all seen that in WWE. You know, everybody has won that title, but
Yep.
our truth is the 24/7 champion. It, period. But our referee actually won. Our LBYW referee actually won the 24/7
Akito, right?
champion.
Did Akito win the title
Yeah,
also?
he did. So I had to take that off his hands and show all these young guys that the old man still got it. You know, become a 17-time 24/7 champion.
It's pretty special though to be a 17-time champion. If anything else, I mean, I would just want to be a one-time champion. Yet here you are as a 17-time 24/7 champion.
Well, come out to North Dakota. We'll see if we can make that happen.
I have right now been asked to come to a lot of places right now. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably be a vagabond because I've been asked to come to the UK. I've been asked to come to Wisconsin. I've been asked to come to Ohio. I've been asked to come to Iowa. I've been asked to come now to you guys. Tennessee, I've been asked to. I mean, there's a number of places. So if I and have the time and I have the abilities, if people want to have me come over at this point, yeah, like I said, DKW, IMF, RLEW, WCE. I'm wearing WCE shirt. You guys and in the UK. So yeah, definitely. We'll say I'm not a competitor though, but I do appreciate the kind words and congratulations on the 17th championship. And CJ Black would like to say I'm not welcome in Michigan. Well, I mean, certainly, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that would probably disagree with that, but I'm going to certainly let you determine. Yeah, I'm sure that he's not a good guy. Clearly, the guy's in his
No,
own bubble.
no, he tries to claim to be the good guy, but you know he's a hill. The good
I
guys
think
don't
CJ.
uninvite.
Listen,
Good guys.
well, I think CJ John, if he's out there, I mean, because they're both named CJ, I mean, CJ of all people has got to be really upset right now. And CJ is not in the best of moods right now in legendary backyard wrestling. So, I mean, I would say that I wouldn't want to be the good guy CJ Black if he crossed paths with the alpha CJ Junt, because right now, CJ Junt, the mood he's in right now in legendary backyard wrestling, especially after Napalm and those wars there and losing the world title, I would have to say that. I would not want to be Mr. Black these days, but I'm going to move on from that because I'm not going anywhere at the moment. Just talking to you right now, live on Sportswire Radio. The thing with sleeping is if you're the hardcore champion, you're a sitting duck. Now, you know this better than anybody else because you have been a champion 17 times. I want to say hello to somebody from the UK out there. Hello, Tom and Chris, and I'll have UK wrestling coverage
How's it going?
tomorrow. Daniel Banner, one of our favorites on Sportswire, young trainee from GT Ministries. And also, I'll have UK wrestling coverage here at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. British Standard Time tomorrow with the Big Cheese Logan. I'll be back Tuesday also again with the Juggernaut John Allens of New British Promotions Wrestling. He is the king of old school champion. I will also have more UK wrestling coverage next week as well with Breakout Pro Wrestling's Ben Hampton. So if you're looking to travel to the UK, I'll have plenty of UK wrestling coverage, and I'll have the Anarchist Gunshot right after Monday Night Raw and Friday UK wrestling
You
coverage
can
with
skip.
Fire.
You can skip that promo. You can
What?
skip that interview.
Skip that
Anarchist
one.
ain't even worth it. Yeah,
Okay.
Anarchist ain't even worth it.
Okay. All right. So you know what? I'll certainly take the consideration into a fact. I started in the backyard wrestling before I was in GTM. You know, I want to ask you this, and I realize I've got only so much time with you. And I was speaking with a wrestler yesterday, guy Sheriff Steele, who I had met, and this was kind of an off the air conversation. We were talking about wrestling, and I kind of think backyard wrestling. A lot of professional wrestlers won't admit this, and I won't say what the sheriff had told me off the air. But I think there's a lot more professional wrestlers than they would like to admit that actually acknowledge what you guys do. Because if you actually surveyed a number of professional wrestlers, they probably started out in the backyards. And I get asked this question a
Oh
lot now because I was on Russian radio. Yes, there's a thing called Russian radio. And I was on Russian radio explaining wrestling and explaining backyard wrestling. And I think backyard wrestling is a lot more valuable than professional wrestlers admit. And I think in some ways, you guys are just as important. I mean, what do you say to that?
yeah, I agree because a lot of the wrestlers. That's where they start off. They started from. That's where they got their passion to do what they're doing and bring their career all the way up to the professional level. You know, um, but a lot of them appreciate it because that's where they started off at, and I think a lot of them are kind of like it more because like we were talking about earlier, the creativity that we get to do our own thing, which they can't. So, I bet you that's why they appreciate more than what they say they do.
Is there one or two things in your career, whether it was in a match, whether it was an opponent, that you would have liked to have done but didn't get the opportunity to?
Oh yeah, I would have loved to go on one with the Wilster or Showtime, PBS in general. I didn't get a
Hmm.
chance to do that. I was
Now,
able to put the Wilson through a fence at one point in time, but
now you mentioned the Wilster, and I should break it here, especially for legendary backyard wrestling fans, because in your spot next Sunday, I'm going to be speaking with the Wilster. And obviously, you've had some interesting battles, some interesting conversations with the Wilster out there on Legendary Backyard Wrestling TV. And I mean, anything you want to say about that? Anything I should know about when it comes to the Wilster before next week's interview with more Legendary Backyard Wrestling coverage? Go ahead.
this has CJ upset. But if it wasn't for me, the Wilster wouldn't even gotten his chance in LBYW because I'm the one who beat CJ the Alpha Giant to give the Wilster his power and the company at that time.
I was going to bring that up because you famously had defeated CJ Junt and took away his power, and that kind of put the Wilster into motion here. And was that one of the more memorable wins in your career? I mean, you had a number of wins, I know, but I mean, certainly I'm going to be asking the Wilster quite a bit about that.
Oh yeah, it was first. It was fun putting CJ the Alpha Giant through the trampoline, and not once but twice, and
Was
it
that three
breaking
rock bottoms, right?
after
Was
I
it
did that.
three rock
Yes,
bottoms, right?
yes, and it breaking was just awesome, and then making him lose the company because me, I don't care about the authority. I do what I want when I want, and so just making him lose his company was just the icing on the cake. You
Why
know,
were you such a rebel throughout your career? You were very like anti-authority. You were very independent. Why were you such a rebel?
because that's my style. That's just me in general. I don't like authority. I don't like being told what I can and cannot do. If you do, it ain't gonna happen. I'm still gonna do what I want to do. It gives me more. I feel it gives me more freedom instead of trying to be a yes sir type guy. That's just not me.
Yeah, you don't look like a yes man. I will say that you do not look like a yes man. So that I agree with you on. Let me get to some comments here because people want to talk to you. It's mostly how some wrestlers got their spark into wrestling. Yeah, listen, I mean, I brought up the example of the
Agree.
Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys started their careers on trampolines. They're to me the biggest examples of, backyards. I think about the Young Bucks in California, not too far from where you were from, and they were big in the backyard scene. I mean, I think you a lot of wrestlers out there were bigger into the backyard wrestling scene than they maybe want to admit because it's kind of taboo with some wrestlers. Oh, it's backyard. It's a dirty word. But I think the backyard scene right now is more interesting. It's more vibrant than a lot of other scenes out there at the moment. CJ
Oh
Black
yeah.
would say, I wouldn't mind adding an old man to the list of victories. Let's get you out of Shady Acres and into the ring.
Well, you know what? Let's get it on. I ain't scared. You
Okay.
come up here, I go down there, whatever. Let's get it on, and then I'll add you to my list, my Hall of Fame list of people I beat.
Well, he says CJ Black, and he said this here on our last show Friday with ROEW coverage. And please follow ROEW on YouTube and Instagram at ROEW Backyard Wrestling. That he doesn't travel, CJ Black. He's not a traveler. He doesn't have to travel. So he's saying
That's
basically
that,
he won't come here.
that's because he's scared of the competition that's out there. He doesn't want to travel anywhere because he doesn't want to take any losses, and he doesn't want to get proven that he's not as good as he thinks he is.
Wow, so you really must be watching us on Sportswire Radio because the big topic on Friday's show was the fact that CJ Black, that his competition hasn't been up to standard. He took on a local homeless guy, he took on a cameraman, and people look at it and say, well, he hasn't faced off with Jack Delta, who works in his company. He hasn't wanted to face off right now with a number of other talents that are in and around the ROEW scene. And people look at it and say his competition is what it is. I do have some comments before I come back. We have the HOUA family vlog. What's up, repping LBYW? So that's somebody I think near and dear to your heart. So I want to
Yeah,
say hello
that's
out there.
that's my that's my wife.
I see that.
LBYW Jennifer. Jennifer. So she's upstairs right now watching the video.
Oh, okay. Well, Jennifer, I want to say hello. And I noticed, by the way, that I think you and the missus did a podcast with CJ last year, if I'm not mistaken. You guys actually did a podcast. I was actually checking that
Yeah,
out there a little bit. What was that like? And that must be kind of cool knowing that your wife supports what you do. A lot of people And I'm not going to say names. I do a lot of different interviews. I interview a lot of people around the world. I've done wrestling. I have a background in news. So the fact that you have your significant other that really supports what you do and is so much into it. I mean, it's gotta almost motivate you. It's got to make you feel good because, like I said, I've been around a lot of different people. I've been in different interests, different subgenres, and you don't always get that. But your wife is like really into it. Well, how does that make you feel?
Oh yeah, she's so into it. She's actually a wrestler in LBYW. She doesn't wrestle consistently, but she does wrestle. And it's awesome, but I got to make sure I win too because I don't want to go home, at night and then her make fun of me, so that gives
So
me a little bit extra.
So I got to ask the question. So when there's time, because you have lost matches, I mean, when you lose, what happens? Do you have to sleep on the couch? Do you not get dinner served to you? I mean, I hope it's not that dire.
uh, it all depends, how bad the loss is. Sometimes it's, oh, you in the doghouse tonight, or I'm taking all the blankets or something like that.
Well, I can understand, but to listen, you won more than you lost, and I want to make sure
Yes.
everybody follows you at chris.arruda.98 on Instagram. Also, Legendary Backyard Wrestling, ND_backyard_wrestling. And my guest tomorrow afternoon, Eastern time, evening UK time, the Big Cheese Logan says, yes, lads, much love. What have I missed? No, just talking pretty much here with Backyard Wrestling Hall of Famer Chris Arruda. We're talking about his career. We spoke about you a couple different times, and we're going to speak about what you're going to have coming up here in the ring in September and a number of different things ahead for our friends over at Championship Wrestling Entertainment because you are a reigning, defending CWE UK champion. And I might even try a candy bar on the air tomorrow because I still have some candy bars because the Big Cheese, just so you know, he is from the UK, and he sent me through the mail a bunch of candy bars from the UK. Now, some of them I've tried. Other ones I
That's
wanted to
pretty
save
cool.
on the air. So I'm going to try one on the air, just random one candy bar, and I'm going to try it on the air. So if you're out there, you're bored, you're out there working, you woke up, and you want to see me try a candy bar from the UK, I recommend that you do this because I'm actually excited because I've had some of the bars, but not all of them I've had. So I'm going to try one because if I try all of them on the air, then you're going to really take over the show because I'm going to be dead and I'll have a heart attack. But I'm going to try one. So I'm very excited about that. And I have some more comments. Mick Foley became the hardcore icon in the backyard scene before WWE. Yes, correct. I had mentioned
Yeah,
that. If you remember the
that's
old,
what we were talking about.
yep, absolutely.
That's what we were talking about.
Also, we have here from DKW. They don't like CJ Black. We've invited Mr. Good Guy to come out and get into our ring, but he was afraid of the Forsaken One, which is certainly a possibility. Mr. Black responds at DKW, the good guy doesn't associate with trash. My best friend is Jack Delta only. Yeah, but Jack Delta doesn't
But
have friends. Yeah, Jack Delta doesn't have friends. Let's be honest.
he won't even face Jack Delta. And he, like you said, he faced a cameraman, a homeless guy, but he won't travel anywhere. But he's so great. You know, I'm calling his bluff. I don't think he's that great because if he was, he would actually face some competition.
Well, he's supposed to face some competition, somewhat of competition, as some might say, in Jacob Collins on REW TV, which I think it'll air later this evening, maybe tomorrow. I'll certainly be an eye on that. And the Big Cheese would also like to remind me, as I told you, there is footage of me doing backyard wrestling and my WWF Tough Enough Season 1 audition video. I forgot about Tough Enough, the Season 1 audition. That goes back.
I know. Tough enough has been a while.
Yeah, I think was that 2000, 2001 maybe, right? Was the first Tough Enough season in 2001 and wasn't that maybe I'll talk about this tomorrow. Was that Stone Cold, Triple H and Trish Stratus? Were they the original host or am I getting that mixed up with a later season? I feel like wasn't that
I I'm not sure. It might have been a later season, closer towards like after the Attitude Era. When
Yep.
it was calming down a little bit. But I
Yeah,
could
I
be wrong.
forgot about that. That was I can't believe that was like a long time ago now, Tough Enough. Yeah, I forgot about that. That Tough Enough that was season 1 and also want to say hello to our friends at Backyard Elite Wrestling. Say good day and obviously Backyard Elite Wrestling is one of our favorites as well. And I was curious, I wanted to ask you this. I've got about 10 or 15 minutes with you. I know you're outside there and I appreciate the opportunity you've given me and
Oh,
I had
he's
asked
still. It's actually nice out here today.
Okay, well then you know what? Then I'll hang out with you because I got nothing to do literally. But I was going to ask you. You guys are a part of the Backyard Wrestling Nexus, and the Nexus I think is really important to touch upon. And from your
Yeah.
vantage point, what did the Nexus do for your career and certainly LBYW?
It helped put us on a bigger map. It helped promote us bigger, and teaming up with them, helped both of ours because it put different new wrestlers into the stories and different type of matches, and it's been fun, collaborating with them.
Do you feel that the networking is something that is important at the backyard scene? Because we see it a lot now. DKW's done it with IMF. WC had this guy Skulls from California. There's a company called the RWA in upstate New York that's done a little bit of that with some of the different areas in and around kind of where the Canadian border is in upstate New York. And also TBW's been around. I mean, Jack Delta is the walking example of that. I mean, I can list some other people, but those are some examples. But do you think in the backyard scene that networking is kind of the most important part, or just what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it is definitely very important because the more I think all of us in backyard wrestling should link up and you know help each other out, promote each other, and it'll give us all a bigger crowd, and so we can show more of the fans what we do, and it'll bring a different variety into our pay-per-views and our shows and even our promos. If we have more companies that we interact with,
Yeah, I
so I
agree
think
with
it's
that
very good.
completely. I agree with that completely because I do think that people should be given opportunities. And I look at what I've done in British independent wrestling, covering that for about 3 years, and I could see on a first hand with what we've done on Sportswire, giving wrestlers that platform and allowing them to network. And I think at the backyard scene, to have that ability to kind of just talk about different things and also be able to have that opportunity to network in a platform, I think it helps everybody. We all win. That's the moral of the story. We all win when everybody has chances. Also, DKW Summer Bash 2024. Maybe that's something that Legendary Backyard Wrestling will be a part of. That's something that I'm sure we'll be talking quite a bit about because it's already less
Or
than a year
maybe
away. Mhm.
or maybe we could both send each other some type of videos so we both have different matches on each other's pay-per-views, and then go from there.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because that's what you guys do, which is pretty cool. Is we see Legendary Backyard Wrestling with the Nexus. You guys are kind
Yep.
of a part of a number of different companies that you'll send a show and you'll air it on that YouTube page. I think that's kind of a cool thing. And whose idea was that? I mean, don't tell me the whole how it all happened, but I thought that was a kind of really cool idea out of the box.
um, I think it was mainly CJ the Alpha Junt. He is like the main person that comes up with a lot of the ideas. Not the only person, but you know, he thought it would be really good to branch out and backyard wrestling Nexus and him. They got in contact, and they came up with some pretty cool stuff for us to do.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to give CJ the Alpha John. I'm going to give him DKW's telephone number, aka Darkron himself. So I'm going to give that, and when we're off the air in a few minutes, I'm going to give that confirmation, that number out there, that contact information. So maybe we can set
Yep.
something up and work with that. So that's something that I'll make sure, I'll personally make sure that's taken care of here. And CJ Black, he would say something that I think we all could agree upon. I will say social media has made it such much easier to build the community for BYW. Back in the day, I would have loved to have had all these options to turn down like I do now because, it is funny. And I said this here before I get to closing thoughts in the fact that, 20 years ago, when you think about backyard wrestling, or even like 10 years ago, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have Instagram, you didn't have the
Exactly.
ability from people in different states to kind of connect. I mean, I remember I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and for a brief period, I was doing a little bit of this stuff, and not that I did it very long, but nobody would have thought, hey, you could network with people in different states, you could meet them, share your content, get to know them. It was kind of like you did your match, you did your stuff, and the only people that knew it was maybe the people that lived in your immediate block. It's a different world now. And I think it's for
Yep.
the better. Society has evolved in that sense. And I think using social media, like we've done here, supporting great companies like TKW, IMF, Legendary Backyard Wrestling, WC, TBW, RWA, so on and so on and so on. That's what we're all about here. And also, DKW says, I look forward to it. So, you know what? I know I could ask you a lot of things, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me here. So, I want to
Yeah.
ask you a
Sorry
few more.
about that malfunction earlier. That kind of cut our time
It
short.
happens. Listen, I speak to guys in the UK, and some people don't have the internet connections. And I realize in different places, they're not as lucky as like me in New York, where I have everything and I just at my disposal. So I totally understand that. But I wanted to ask you, and I know you've had a lot of matches in your career, but is there one or two matches that stand out most in your career?
Oh yeah. First, the first hardcore match, me and CJ the Alpha John did, that set the tone for our hardcore side. And that set the tone for my career. So that is a very special match to me. And another one was when I faced my son Ragnarok in the first ever tables match, and I claymored him through the table to win. That was fun, because how many people could say they get to claymore their son through a table? No.
And how many people say
um,
that they can wrestle their son? I mean, how many people, if
exactly.
you think about it, I mean, there's very few people that could say they've wrestled their son. I mean, technically, Ric Flair did wrestle David Flair way back, I
Yeah.
believe, in a WCW show. If it counts, Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon have wrestled each other. I mean, there's very few examples. I don't even think Dustin Rhodes and Dusty Rhodes wrestled each other. I don't believe they
I
did.
don't think so. No,
Yeah, so there's
I think
very
it's just
few.
more of the brothers wrestled and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Another one was I got to end the Psychotic Freaks' longest reign at that time of United States champion when I came back after injury. That was pretty nice because he was on a good run, but I had to show him why I was the inaugural United States champion because I didn't lose it. I had to, surrender it.
Yeah.
So winning that back was nice.
Let me ask you one follow-up question on your son. When you wrestle your son, was there ever any thoughts, hey, I got to be extra careful. Hey, it's my son. My wife's going to say something, his mother, blah, 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 blah. I mean, any thoughts ever like that come to mind?
Yeah, it was a little like that. I got to tone it down because I can't, I don't want to pay for any hospital bills or nothing like that. No, but I got to be a little more careful, and I didn't want the wife to get too mad at me and be in the doghouse. But he's a backyard. He wrestles backyard wrestling.
I
He
noticed.
puts his body on the
I'm
line too.
watching LBYW, and I obviously watching the content the last several weeks. I've gotten a sense of that, but I was just kind of fascinated by that to ask because I've got people out here that are just hearing you guys for the first time, and I wanted to
Yeah.
ask that question. Now I know that you're retired, and I know you're still kind of involved in LBYW, but is there other things, let's say, in the backyard business that you like to do, whether it's train, whether it's, let's say, maybe help with promos, maybe commentary? Or there's stuff that you like to do on and off
Um,
screen? Go ahead.
oh yeah. I like to help come up with the different characters, storylines. For different characters, have them branch out and reach their full potential. I like being guest referees, like I do sometimes. And I like being in the audience a lot though too because I get to talk smack. I get to talk smack to them. And then once in a while, like I said, refereeing or whatever. One thing I am looking forward to, I might look into is maybe I'll reach out and take somebody under my wing and be their manager. I haven't
I was going
decided
to
yet.
ask you about that because I think that you're a good mouthpiece. I think that you add a lot to the ring. You have a lot of experiences. You're a veteran. So I do kind of think you'd be a good manager. I think about Bobby Heenan was a great manager like that who transitioned. I think about Ted DiBiase did that for a while. I mean, obviously Paul Heyman wasn't a wrestler really, but he's been a very good manager. He's at the top of the game. And there's a guy here in England, the guy like Isaiah Quinn, who was a wrestler, who's transitioned. He's probably the best mouthpiece in the UK. So I think that there's an audience and an avenue for that. Ric Flair did managing obviously for quite a while in the Ruthless Aggression era, and even did some obviously stuff in obviously Evolution that kind of was borderline half and half. So I think you could really be a guy that would do that stuff here. And your wife would like to say, it's always scary watching the LBY wrestlers in the ring, but they love what they do. And I love supporting their dreams. And I love supporting their dreams as well. And I love what all you guys do. And I always thought the best thing about LBYW, before I get to closing thoughts here and one more question, is I think your atmosphere. You guys got that whole
Oh
almost
yeah,
like a mountain outside, and you've got kind of like just a beautiful open space, and you've got the grass, you've got all that stuff. So I think your guys'
the
setting,
snow.
it's very open spacey. I kind of like it. It's very intimate. I mean, you've got like a nice little audience there. You've got like friends, family, which I think is very cool. So it doesn't look too like almost like it looks like it makes sense. It doesn't look like it's out of place is the line. It looks very much
Oh
in.
yeah,
So that's why I think what you guys do is very unique. And I think for the location you guys are, because there really isn't too many in North Dakota, you don't really think about a backyard wrestling scene. So you guys are very important. You guys are creative because even without the ring, I think you guys have done so many different things. You guys wrestle in the snow. You guys wrestle in the rain. You guys wrestle in all these different elements, which I think adds something to you guys. And that's why I'm big fans of you guys. And I want everybody to follow you guys again at ND_backyard_wrestling. Legendary Backyard Wrestling on YouTube at CJ Junt. But I want to ask you this last question before I get to closing thoughts. And I hope to have you back. I
yeah.
obviously love what you do. And I definitely think that this is just going to be the very beginning of things to come here on Sportswire Radio. But I
Oh yeah,
mean,
definitely.
what does Legendary Backyard Wrestling mean to you?
It means a lot because, like you said, the atmosphere. 95% of LBYW, we're all actually family. We're there. I got my CJ the Alpha Jump. He's my nephew. He's married to my niece, mine and my wife's niece. My son wrestles. My wife wrestles once in a while. My two other kids wrestle once in a while. Just Ice, my niece. So it's all really fun because we're all family and we're all doing something we all like. So it makes it really special.
And that's really cool, by the way, that all of you guys are kind of intertwined like that. It kind of makes it, I think, extra special and that you guys are all doing something that everybody's so invested in, immersed in. You don't get that a lot. So I think that's kind of
Oh
really
yeah.
cool in the fact that you guys are bonded by it. You think about a lot of different things that people do. And, people always ask me, they say, well, does your family listen to your stuff? And I say, well, no, not really. They're not really into it, but, a lot, listen, that's normal. Most families, really aren't into certain interests. It takes a certain unique type of person. But with you guys, everybody's so into it. Everybody's so invested. And I even see the talent in LBYW. Everybody's so close. Everybody's so friendly. And I think that what
Oh
makes you
yeah.
guys a very special company. And that's why I really enjoy covering you guys and watching your content. And I love supporting what you guys do.
Thank
And
you. Appreciate
I'm
that.
and I'm very honored to have had you on here. It's not too often I get to speak with the Hall of Famer. My last 2 days have been very interesting. I meet a guy I interviewed from the UK here in New York. I now get a chance to speak with the Hall of Famer. Going to be very hard to top this weekend, but we're going to try anyway. So it has been a tremendous honor. And one more comment. My dad and mom have been in 24/7
Yeah.
matches. Who would have guessed that? Well, there you go.
Yep.
I mean,
My in-laws have been 24/7 champions. The funny thing is my mother-in-law actually lost the 24/7 champion title to my father-in-law while we were out on vacation.
wow. If you would have asked me that would have happened, or in-laws would have wrestled each other and it would have been for a title, I would have chuckled. I would have said, "No way!" You would have just never would have happened. I mean, you would have asked me if that would have happened in my family. I would have said, "No way!" But
and
that's kind of cool.
and my wife has actually wrestled her dad, my father-in-law, in the match. So that makes it's fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. And CJ Black would like to say something that I could either win. No, man, I don't think I'd win that one either. So I'm going to take a agreement with you there on that. No, I don't think I'd win that. That's why I'm outside the ring, not inside the ring. I'll save that for the guys that want to go out there and do it. So certainly, as CJ, I'm going to let you have that one for you. So you can have that one, CJ. But you know what, CJ Black, you can take my microphone over. How about that? I'll retire from Sportswire and you can run the show. And
Oh no,
let's see.
you're too good. You're too good at it to retire. just
I don't
quite
know
yet.
about that. Well, we'll see. We'll see. But you know what? I realize you're outside, and I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing us to share your story about your decorated career, being a Hall of Famer, being still a part of things in LBYW. So I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and I can't thank you enough for this opportunity, and the floor is yours.
Oh yeah. First I want to say thank you to Backyard Wrestling fans and Nexus for inducting me into the Hall of Fame. And we have our gear here, LBYW. If you can see that,
Yes.
you can order that. Just get a hold of CJ the Alpha Junt or go to Creative Creations LLC on Facebook and put your order in, and then we
Okay.
can have it made and shipped out to you. And follow us, like you see on the screen, HUA Family Vlog. We have that's behind
I'm
the
going to
scenes. That's what
subscribe
we,
right when I get off the air.
yeah.
Actually, the first thing I'm going to do
That,
is subscribe to the YouTube channel.
oh yeah, see, so that right there is a lot of what we do behind the scenes as a family. We go
Okay.
to the lake, we go do different stuff, and we also have backyard wrestling backstage, which is also bloopers and just fun stuff, us messing around, or there's some videos of us training different
Yes,
moves and stuff
I
like
noticed
that.
some of that you guys were you were a part of that, kind of helping out some of the talent and
Yep.
doing different spots on the trampoline, which I thought was very cool. I thought that Legendary Backyard Wrestling has done a really cool thing, kind of showing you the outside what you guys do.
Oh yeah, I think it's important to show the fans, our other side besides the wrestling. No, because it helps them interact and us interact with each other more.
Absolutely. Absolutely no question about that. All very cool stuff. And I appreciate the fact as a family, you guys do all that stuff. So I wish I could say the same, but that's you're dealt you're dealt the card you're dealt with in life, and I think you guys have a great hand, and I definitely want to support that and enjoy that journey. So my first thing I'm going to do when I get off the air in a couple of minutes is subscribe to the YouTube channel and do more for I can to support LBYW. And I got to get a shirt. So maybe this week I'm going to go message CJ and I'm going to buy a shirt because that's what I have to do at this
And
point.
and you can design and send your own logo in on the back and everything else, and then we
Yeah,
can
I
put it on the
actually
forehead.
should because I got to show it here. I have my Sportswire radio shorts shirt, so I got to go put the
There you go.
Sportswire logo on there. So we'll do that. We'll definitely do that. I want everybody to follow Legendary Backyard Wrestling one more time on YouTube, Legendary Backyard Wrestling at CJ Junt, also ND underscore backyard underscore wrestling on Instagram as well. Chris.Arruda.98
And
as well.
we do have LBYW Backyard Wrestling on TikTok too.
I
My
noticed that
daughter
I
made
need to
that.
promote TikTok more because I know James Taylor's on TikTok. You guys are on there. I know
Oh yeah.
DKW, IMF are on there, WCE, and there's now Threads out there. If you believe in that, there's a Thread, which is the Twitter, I guess, knockoff now is Threads. I don't know if I'm going to join Threads, but TikTok is something I may have to join. So TikTok, we'll have to see. But I want to thank you, my friend. Congratulations on being a Hall of Famer.
Thank you.
I look forward to watching more of you out there in an on-stage capacity and on-air, backstage, whatever else out there. I'm sure you'll do great things in the world of wrestling. And thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to speaking with you very soon here on Sportswire Radio. There it
Oh
is.
yeah. Thank you very much for having me. And you got to tune in because I'm the unpredictable one, so you never know what I'm gonna do.
Oh, that's why you got to go to CJ Junt on YouTube and follow Legendary Backyard Wrestling because we got the breaking news here. He is now the 17-time 24/7 champion, the unpredictable one, the hardcore icon, Chris Arruda, also part of the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame. He is here with us. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you were on Sportswire Radio, sportnarium.com/player, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on Twitter and YouTube, 3 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Time with Big Cheese Logan. Tuesday, Juggernaut John Allen, same spot. Your nemesis right after Raw tomorrow. The Anarchist Gunshot Friday. We're going to be here live also with Stu Tunney of Firestar Championship Wrestling. Thursday, Pro Zone Gaming Division. It'll be 10 p.m. Eastern Time for video game streaming interviews, so stay tuned for that. But thank you, everybody, here for tuning in on the number one global radio station. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce.